Hello, my name's Jenny and I'm 27 years old. 3 years ago, I married the most beautiful person I have ever met, Hugo. He's such a kind and compassionate goofball who makes me feel amazing every day. Unfortunately, the same cannot be said for his mother, Maria, aka my mother-in-law. She, for some reason, has always had it out for me since day one, and I get it. That's her precious baby boy, and she doesn't want to see him get hurt. She's just interested in protecting his best interest, but I genuinely do believe that she takes things overboard sometimes. She's the type of person who does seemingly small and innocently naive injustices to people, but in reality, she deliberately pushes your buttons and gets on your nerves to make you seem like you're the crazy one. I know we all know someone like that in our lives. Unfortunately, I have to deal with this person because she's my mother-in-law. Anyhow, I was raised differently. I'm the type of person who calls people out on their nonsense, and I tend not to hold back. I think this is why Hugo fell in love with my personality, because he's more of a quiet, soft-spoken person. And just like the saying goes, opposites do indeed attract. I studied a bit of psychology, so believe me when I say that I know that Maria, my mother-in-law, has bad intentions. I think both of our domineering personalities clash, which is probably why she said this the first time I met her. "Jenny, don't you think it's time to stop eating so much?" The whole table at the restaurant sucked in the air, daring not to speak. I was completely mortified, and I'm sure my pale complexion was a great indicator of how embarrassed and flushed I was. It was me, Hugo, who was my boyfriend at the time, Kyle, my father-in-law, and Maria at the table. Kyle was too stunned to speak, and he bowed his head as if he was sharing my embarrassment. Hugo was also feeling embarrassed, but he was also angry at his mother for saying that. He aptly berated her. "Really, Mom? That is such an awful thing to say. She can eat as much as she wants to." Oh, no, sweetie. I didn't mean any harm. I just wanted to look out for you, you know. I've noticed that you've been gaining a lot of weight. Hugo has been showing me your photos from when you were younger, and you looked so much better then. Not like now. But I don't mean to be offensive, sweetheart. I'm just trying to give you some advice. I tried my best to remain calm as I didn't want to cause a scene, but my embarrassment quickly started to turn into irritation. Nonetheless, because this was my first time meeting the family and I wanted to make a lasting impression, because I absolutely adored Hugo, for the first time in a long time, I held my tongue. I just smiled at her politely and thanked her for the unsolicited advice. Situations like that grew in frequency and strength as we got to know each other more. I genuinely believed that the taunting would stop at some point after she had determined that I was good for her son, but it only appeared to be getting worse. I was beginning to get along fine with my father-in-law Kyle, who is the sweetest man on earth. I see where Hugo gets it from. As much as I was growing closer and closer to everyone else in Hugo's family, Maria appeared to be the only one who disliked me, and for no apparent reason as well. I even got introduced to Jack, who is Hugo's childhood friend. They grew up together. Kyle and Maria practically consider him as a second son. Even though Hugo's whole heart was open to me and it appeared as though his family accepted me with open arms, even his extended family as well as Jack, it was just Maria who had an issue with me. I'm so grateful for the love and support I managed to identify from the vast and overwhelming majority of Hugo's family. I received this love and support up until my wedding day, where my mother-in-law, of course, tried to do something conniving to get me to look bad. On my special day, she made it a point to be as bothersome and as ridiculous as she could be. Honestly, she was acting like a bridezilla. "No, her hair is supposed to be in an updo, just like how I did on my wedding day." "I appreciate the help, Maria, but I want my hair to look like this." I don't think so. You look so ugly." The bridal party gasped, but unfortunately I was used to this, so it wasn't surprising. She quickly tried to rectify her mistake. "Oh, no, darling, no. I just mean that you can look so much better than you do now. And I would just like to say that I see a lot of myself in Jenny. She is such a bright young woman, and even though I looked much better than she did at her age, I would like to say that she is beautiful in her way." Although my father-in-law managed to get my mother-in-law to stop her ruthless antics on the day, the pain and bitterness I felt remained. This was not in my nature, to remain silent and unresponsive. I was losing my firecracker energy. This woman was slowly draining me, and it had to be put to an end. Fast forward 3 years to where the events of today's story take place. We were all sitting at the dining table of Hugo's childhood home and where his parents still live on a Sunday night. My mother-in-law had ever so graciously invited us over, including Jack, meaning that it must have been something important she wanted to tell us all. Although I had my suspicions about her randomly making this dinner plan, which later on were affirmed, it was a pleasant surprise. At some point the ball dropped, and this is the beginning of what turned out to be a very messy series of events. My mother-in-law started to garner everyone's attention as she had an important announcement to make. She pulled out a paper and started reading it. "Attention everyone, I have an announcement to make because you all know my birthday's coming up, and so I wanted to let you know what I've been planning for the very special day. I've decided that we're going to take a trip to Hawaii." The paper was a confirmation of the Hawaii trip. "That sounds fantastic." "What? That's amazing. Jenny, I've always wanted to go to Hawaii." "Oh my goodness, this is great news. I'm so excited. I don't even know what to say. Thanks so much, Mer. Oh, actually, you're not coming." Honey, what are you talking about? This wasn't part of the plan." "I made some last-minute arrangements and managed to cancel her ticket before they gave us extra charges." "Oh, so my ticket was already bought? She just went ahead and canceled it? Why does this woman hate me so much?" "Mom, what are you talking about?" Jack and I seemed to be the only ones silent in this whole situation, as a whole flurry of harsh words was exchanged back and forth. Eventually, after some poking and prodding for a decent enough excuse, Maria finally stated, Okay, fine. I'll tell you the reason why I thought it best that Jenny sits this family event out. As you all know, I'm getting a little bit older, and I've decided that I want the remaining years of my life to be centered on being around the people I care most about. Unfortunately, Jenny just doesn't belong on that list." "Wow, Mom, really? What is wrong with you?" "Nothing is wrong with me. Don't you dare disrespect me. I'm just saying that. Well, you know, Jenny can't be considered part of our family, since she's not related by blood." "Well, by that logic, then Jack shouldn't be able to go either, right? Since he isn't technically family, as you're stating. But we all know that's preposterous, and he is part of the family, and ever since Hugo and Jenny got married, that means she is part of the family." "Well, obviously with Jack it's different. You know that he's just so precious, and he's our sweet baby angel. He's always been here, but Jenny hasn't. So that's why I'm just not comfortable with her coming on the trip, and it's my birthday, so I get to decide whatever we want. Come on, Jenny, we're leaving at once." "No." The way that I firmly said no commanded all of the attention in the room, including my antagonist, who was trying to stifle a smile this entire time. But at that moment, she wiped it off her face. "Maria, you've made it clear since the beginning that you do not like me. And every day for the past 3 years, I have endured your insufferableness. You think we all don't see how you act. You think that we all don't notice that you're a narcissist. Little girl, you better watch the way you speak to me. You are in my house, and not for long I'm not. I'm just about to leave, actually, but not before I say this." I turned to my loving husband, who was looking at his mother with angry eyes. Babe, I love you with my whole heart, and I have tried to endure this for such a long time, but I see now that your mother will never accept me into this family. No matter how hard I try, and no matter how many times I bite my tongue, she will always have a problem with me. You should go on this trip. You can't miss it. As much as your mother is crazy, she's still your mother, and you love her and she loves you, so you have to go. Don't worry about me, I'll be fine. I then turned to my mother-in-law, whose mouth was agape because of what I just said. And as for you, unfortunately for you, I am in love with your son, and I am not going anywhere. You might think that you can push me away, but I will always be here. Even when you go to Hawaii, you will always be thinking about me because, if I'm being honest, I think you're obsessed with me. How dare you! I should slap you right now. I'm not finished. You are obsessed with me. You're obsessed with tearing me down, and I cannot even imagine why, when all I've done is shown you kindness and patience even when you didn't deserve it. But enough is enough. You don't want me to go to Hawaii with you. Fine. You don't think I'm part of the family. Fine. But I will always be here as long as I breathe. I will always be here for Hugo, Kyle, and even Jack, but never for you. At that moment, I realized that I finally shut her up. She left her mouth open as if she was searching for something to say. Anything to say, but her mind wouldn't let her. Finally, I managed to keep her quiet. I said goodbye to the rest of the family members, kissed my husband on the cheek, and began to walk out. Let me drive you home at least. I can't let you take a cab. Please don't worry about me, babe. I love you and thank you so much for loving me, but I'll be fine. You have a trip to discuss. Okay, if you say you're fine, then I'll believe you. Oh, don't forget your purse. Right, my purse. I left in the kitchen once I arrived. At some point, though, Maria went into the kitchen, I think to catch her breath after the whole situation. After being berated like that, I too would have done something similar. What do you want? Don't worry about me, sweetheart. I'm just here to collect my things. Well, make it quick. I want you out of my house. I can't believe you said those things to me. With that, she quickly stormed out. She was filled with so much anger that she didn't even want to see me out the door. At that moment, I scoffed at her ridiculousness and reached for my purse, when I noticed a piece of paper next to it. My eyes glanced over it and noticed that it was Maria's handwriting. I believed at the time that it must have been a piece of paper detailing the itinerary for the trip. Because I was feeling slightly bitter about not going, I wanted to take a peek and see just how much fun I'd be missing out on. I grabbed it and began to read the paper. Dearest Jack, you know that you have always been like a son to me, and you know that I love you dearly. Oh, so this is a letter to Jack. Bit strange, but I guess it's thoughtful. For some reason, my curious eyes began to read further. And the love and care you have shown for me throughout the years will never be forgotten. I hate to admit it, but even when it comes to my son, Hugo, I feel as though the love we once shared is no longer there. Wait, what? Is she saying she loves Jack more than she loves Hugo? That simply couldn't be. I continued to read the paper, and with each new line, I got more astonished at what I was reading. I simply couldn't believe it. There was a lot to unpack, and even though it wasn't my place to read that letter, I'm really glad that I did. After reading the entirety of the letter, I began to pace in the kitchen, wondering what to do, and then it hit me. All of the people who needed to know about this letter's existence were all sitting in that room. If ever there was a time to act, it was now. I reread the letter one more time just to make sure that I wasn't crazy and imagining things, and just as I thought, yep, it was the same thing I read the first time. I waltzed out into the dining room to meet only 3 pairs of eyes looking back at me. Jenny, I am so sorry for what my wife is trying to put you through. Don't worry one bit. You will come with us to Hawaii as long as I'm around. She's just in a funk right now. But don't worry, I'll convince her to change her mind. I don't know what's gotten into her recently, but don't worry, I will change her mind as I said. Kyle, please don't worry about me as I said. I'm fine. I'm more than fine because I have found some interesting news that I need to share with everyone, and I especially need to share it with Hugo. Hugo and Jack's ears perked up. I saw the flash of worry that ran across Hugo's face. Perhaps he thought that this was too much for me to handle and that I wanted to ask for a divorce. Oftentimes, when I would complain about his mother to him, he'd agree with me and wonder how I managed to keep up with her nonsense for so long. I'd always tell him that it was because I loved him way too much to let him go, and that I'd go to hell and back for him. I noticed that wicked witch of the West wasn't around, so I asked, "Where is Maria? She needs to be here for this, too." "Oh, I mentioned earlier, she appears to be in a bit of a funk after you shouted at her. She said she got a mild headache and wanted to nurse it with a nap upstairs. She won't be down for a while. You know how she gets about her beauty sleep." I was all too familiar with Maria's awkward and unnecessary routines and regimes that would often inconvenience others. I huffed in irritation. "This is just really important. She has to be here." "It's okay, Jenny, you can tell us. And we'll inform her when she wakes up." I hesitated, considering the information that I knew. I wanted to see the redness on her face from embarrassment. "I think you should just go ahead and tell us. Sweetie, it's okay. And you know, Hugo has anxiety. It would be bad to keep him waiting." That was true. Hugo's anxiety got really bad at times, and I could see him begin to fidget from the anticipation. "Okay, fine. I'll show you guys what I found. When I was in the kitchen collecting my purse and getting ready to leave, I found something interesting that I think you all need to know about." I pulled out the paper I found and began to read. It reads, "Dearest Jack, you know that you have always been like a son to me, and you know that I love you dearly, and the love and care you have shown for me throughout the years will never be forgotten. I hate to admit it, but even when it comes to my son, Hugo, I feel as though the love we once shared is no longer there." What is she saying? What is this? I continued reading. "Hugo, I just don't see eye to eye like we used to, and honestly, I think it's because of Jenny. Ever since he married that girl, he no longer has time for me. He doesn't love me, and therefore I don't think I love him. I love you, and you are my son. With that being said, I want to let you know that I am going to update my will so that you inherit all of my belongings and not Hugo. I know it might hurt him, but honestly, at this point, I don't care. It's that wretched Jenny girl. She's the one who has poisoned my love for him. I hope you received this letter well. The reason why I didn't want to approach you about it in person is that, and it pains me to admit this, I couldn't risk seeing the rejection on your face. I know you love Hugo like he's your brother, and most likely you won't approve, but I don't care. I'm giving you everything. The money, the house, the cars, and even my small businesses. They're all yours, whether you like it or not. If you want to talk about this further, please call me and we can discuss it. I look forward to hearing your response. I will love you forever and always. Your second mom." I finally looked up from reading the letter, and I was met with a flurry of mixed emotions. Kyle looked like he was going to cry. Jack looked stunned, but Hugo? Hugo looked like he was going to murder someone. I can't believe she said all those things. Is she being serious right now? So the reason why she's doing all of this is because of Jenny? She hates Jenny so much that she'd not include me in her will? Just to spite me and Jenny? She's officially lost her mind, you guys. I don't even know what to say. This has gone far enough. I've had it with this woman and her toxic behavior. What are we going to do? At that moment, I had an idea. 1 week had gone by, and it was time for the designated Hawaii trip. Maria woke up and found a letter from her husband on her bedside table. It read, "Good morning, gorgeous. We decided to let you get some more beauty rest. Don't worry, your bags have all been packed. Just find us at the airport." Maria then got ready and headed to the airport, looking around frantically for the people with whom she was meant to go on this birthday trip. She tried calling them, but they all wouldn't answer. She assumed that they were already on the plane and therefore couldn't answer her call. She rushed frantically and boarded her flight, hoping to just meet them once they landed in Hawaii. She endured the 12-hour flight, and once she boarded, she video called Kyle. "Hello? Kyle, where the hell are you guys? I woke up late and saw your note, which was a cute idea if I hadn't woken up so late. I got to the airport and tried calling you guys, but none of you were responding. I just assumed that you already boarded. But it doesn't matter now because now we're in Hawaii. How amazing. Tell me where you are so we can meet up and let the festivities begin." "That won't be happening, Maria." What do you mean? Tell me where you are." "I'm at home." "What?" "You heard me. I'm at home. We're all at home. Say hi, everyone." Kyle panned out his phone to show that everyone, himself, Jack, Hugo, and me, were all in his house, sitting at the same dining table where we all heard the tragic news from a week before. "What do you mean? Why are you at home?" "You see, Maria, Jenny brought some interesting information to our attention a week ago, and ever since then we decided that we'd much rather spend our time in boring old Florida with her than anywhere else with you." Maria gasped. "You think we wouldn't find out?" "Find out what, my baby?" "Oh, don't you baby me. You were really gonna cut me out of the will, Mom." Who? How did you even find out about that?" "Oh, that wretched girl that you hate so much. Jenny found your stupid letter in the kitchen." "I don't know what you're talking about." "Maria, lying right now is only adding more nails to the coffin." "Jack, tell them. You gotta believe me. I did nothing of the sort." "We all read the letter, Maria. The gig is up." But I didn't do anything. Jenny is making everything up." "Oh, am I? You are so pathetic. It actually makes me sick. We all know what you said and what you tried to do. Thank God I was nosy enough to read the whole thing." "Hugo, Kyle, please." "No, Maria, enough is enough. You're done. You don't get to say anything else. You messed up big time. Your hatred has caused you to be blind. Now you have to suffer the consequences of being alone on your birthday because of what you've done. I hope you can use this time in Hawaii to reflect on your actions." "But I'll be alone. It won't be fun." "Maybe people would like to hang out with you more if you weren't such a raging witch. Have fun." And with that, Kyle hung up the phone. We all let out a sigh of relief, and I was the first person to start laughing. Eventually, Hugo joined in, and before we knew it, we were all bursting with laughing and cackling at the dining table, just laughing at how crazy the situation was. The look on her face once she realized the gig was up was hilarious. Her face turned pale. All the blood drained from her face, and I could tell that was the first time in a long time that she felt embarrassed. Maria had to spend her vacation alone, oftentimes calling Kyle to see if he at least would come and join her, because canceling the reservations she made would be expensive. But every time he kept denying it. He said that when she comes back, they were going to have to implement some ground rules that were to be followed if she still wanted to be married to him. Maria began to be very apologetic and frantic, a complete 180 from what she normally acted like, which was honestly surprising. Hugo also mentioned that if Maria still wanted to be in his life, she had to drastically change her attitude. Otherwise, he was ready to walk out of her life forever. Their relationship is still rocky, and Hugo said that if Maria ever disrespected him ever again, even if it's the smallest snide remark she could make, he would cut her off completely, the same way that she was planning on cutting him off. As for Jack, he thought it best to stop being so nice to Maria, as it was clearly enabling her toxic behavior. So not only did Maria end up spending a miserable time in a beautiful place, but she also risked losing the three most important people in her life. She now has very rocky relationships with all of them, and she has to change to be better. As for me, I messaged her and told her that I need time to see if I'm going to forgive her for all of her injustices, and she was apologizing and begging for me to talk some sense into the men in her life. I obviously refused, stating that this is the bed she made for herself, and now she has to lay in it. And even to this day, Maria is still trying to mend the very broken relationships that she caused. I just hope that she learned her lesson. My dad retired. He did not let me finish my sentence and interrupted again. Oh, then he must be dependent on you for his living after retirement? He didn't even let me complete my sentence before passing judgment. I was furious by now. I reacted. Excuse me? What are you saying? Don't be offended. It is common for a poor family to use their daughter to trap wealthy men for their inheritance. Do you mean that I and my family have trapped your son for your wealth? He shrugged his shoulders as if he wanted to say yes. I was in shock. I could not believe that someone could be so mean. I was disgusted by Michael. He made me feel inferior as I was poor, according to him. I am Amanda, 28 years old, living in California with my boyfriend, Steve, who is also 28 years old. We met in law school 3 years ago and instantly fell for each other. Since then, we have been living together. After graduation, I took up a job as an attorney in a consulting company, while Steve works at a bank. 6 months ago, Steve and I went for a holiday where he proposed to me, and I immediately said yes. I didn't have any reason to say no. We have known each other for 3 years, and we enjoy being together. After coming back from holiday, we decided to inform our parents about our wedding plans. It was decided that the coming weekend we would meet my parents, and the following week we would meet Steve's parents. We had never introduced each other to our parents before, due to some personal reasons, so this would be our first meeting. I was super excited about this plan. I could not control my excitement and immediately called up my mom. Mom, Steve proposed to me and we're planning to get married. Congratulations, sweetie. I am so happy for you both. Yeah, Mom, I'm happy too. So when can we meet Steve? We're planning to come home this Sunday. Does this sound good? Yes, sure. See you then. Bye. Bye. The following week, Steve and I drove to my parents' house in Sacramento. I'm born and brought up in Sacramento. My father, Mark Johnson, is a retired judge, and my mother is a homemaker. Steve was a little nervous on the way, but I tried to cheer him up by saying, "It would be fine. My parents are cool ones." "Oh yeah? I'll find out today." As soon as we entered the house, my mom came running to welcome us. Steve greeted my mom with a nervous smile. She took us to the living room where Dad was sitting with his newspaper. Steve went towards him and offered a handshake. My dad immediately stood up and greeted Steve with a formal handshake. My father's politeness immediately turned off Steve's nervousness. We spent the day talking about work and life while enjoying the delicious lunch prepared by my mom. Dad shared his courtroom experiences with us. My parents liked Steve's polite nature. Steve, too, seemed to have a good time with my parents. We came back with happy memories. Steve looked relieved and delighted with the experience. I was happy, too. Next, it was my turn to meet Steve's parents. Steve was tense throughout the week after this meeting. When I asked him, he just said, I don't get along well with my father." "I know, don't worry. It is just a matter of a few hours. We will meet them and come back home." Steve's father, Michael Lewis, was a businessman, and he wanted Steve to join his real estate business. Steve didn't like his father's business and instead wanted to study law. Since then, they are not on good terms. While on the way to his parents' home, Steve told me, "Don't be upset if my father behaves arrogantly." "What? Why would he do so?" "I don't know. He might be just angry with me." That was a long time ago. He must have forgiven you. Steve sighed. I wish, but I know my father. He does not forgive that easily. Oh, come on. You're just overthinking. It'll be fine. Steve's anxiousness made me nervous, too. Steve's house was on the other side of the city. It was a 2-storied bungalow with a spacious lawn. As we went inside the house, we were greeted by Steve's mother, Catherine. Hello, my dear. She greeted us with a warm hug. She looked like a kind and poised woman. She then took us to the lawn outside the bungalow where my fiancé's dad was waiting for us. Steve does not speak much about his dad, but whatever little I knew about him, I imagined him to be an arrogant rich man who loves to show off his wealth. And guess what? He turned out to be exactly the same. He sat there with a folded arm. His stiff posture signified that he was still angry with Steve and wanted to unleash his frustration upon us. As soon as I made eye contact with Michael, I smiled wide and greeted him. Hello, sir. He nodded with a straight face and gestured his hand towards the chair opposite to him. I sat down there. After we settled down, Catherine broke the awkward silence and said, Amanda, you are so beautiful and elegant. Your parents have taken good care of you. Oh, thank you so much for your kind words. You are beautiful too. That's so sweet of you. Tell us more about yourself. Catherine's words were soothing. It gave me a little comfort to sit there in front of Michael, who was sitting cross-legged with folded arms and without any smile. I smiled at Catherine and said, Well, I was born and brought up in Sacramento. I'm an attorney at a consulting firm. As soon as Michael heard this, his expression changed and he interrupted. Wait, you work as an attorney? Why can't your father provide for you? Doesn't he earn well? What did your father do? I was shocked by his response. I was wondering if I've said anything wrong. In my confused tone, I said, My dad is retired. He did not let me finish my sentence and interrupted again. Oh, then he must be dependent on you for his retirement life. He didn't even let me complete my sentence before passing judgment. I was furious by now. Excuse me? What are you saying? Don't be offended. It is common for a poor family to use their daughter to trap wealthy men for their inheritance. Do you mean that I and my family have trapped your son for your wealth? He shrugged his shoulders as if he wanted to say yes. I was in shock. I could not believe that someone could be so mean. I was disgusted by Michael. He made me feel inferior as I was poor, according to him. I wanted to leave that place immediately, but Steve held my hand and asked me to be seated for a while. He then turned towards Michael and said, We are not here to listen to your taunts. We just came to inform you both that we are getting married in a few months. And who's paying for this ceremony? That's not your business, Dad. Of course it is. I know her parents cannot pay for a wedding ceremony. It would ultimately come on you. You have to take the burden on your shoulders, isn't it? It is mine and Amanda's matter as to who would pay for the ceremony. Huh, you are already in her trap. First, she brainwashed you to leave this house and join that stupid law college, and now this wedding. Steve lost his cool and started shouting at Michael. I left the house because I wanted to study law. I was not interested in running this real estate business. I didn't even know Amanda at that time. Then how can you blame her for this thing? You could have come home after your graduation, but this girl trapped you into living with her in that tiny apartment. Michael was being unreasonable with his allegations against me and my parents. He continued, I have nothing further to say. You are running your life by marrying a poor girl. She and her parents seem to have already trapped you. Dad, stop. I have met her parents. They are kind people and they are not interested in your wealth. The conversation between them got intense. You have always made wrong choices in life. I already gave up on you when you decided to study that stupid law and work for a meager salary instead of joining my business. I hate your business because it is sick. Oh, please stop this argument. Catherine intervened and asked him to stop. Steve stood up and stormed out of the lawn. I followed him. Catherine came running behind us, asking us to stop. "Steve, please stop." Steve ignored her and kept walking towards the exit of the bungalow. I looked back and saw that Catherine was running towards us with tears in her eyes. I stopped. She came to me and held my arms, saying, "Please, ask him to stop for a while. Last time also, he left like this and did not meet me for several years." I stood numb. I felt sorry for her as she was not at fault. She had to suffer because of her husband's arrogance. "Amanda, please, ask Steve to calm down." I didn't know what to say because I was upset too with Michael's words. I pacified her, saying, "Steve is angry now. Once he is in a better mood, I'll ask him to call you." "Yeah, please ask him to call me, please." "Sure, you take care, okay?" "Okay." She was still sobbing as I left the place. I came out of the bungalow to see Steve waiting for me inside the car. I got inside and we drove back. We did not speak a word on the way back home. Both of us were hurt and exhausted by what happened in his house. After dinner, Steve apologized to me for his father's behavior. "Honey, I want to apologize for my father's behavior. I know he hurt you with his cruel words." "Yeah, I know it is not your fault. Yet I can't get over the fact that he is such an arrogant man. How can someone be so rude? I know he's your father and I shouldn't be saying these things about him, but he was mean to me." "He has always been a mean person. Sadly, my mom has to suffer because of his arrogant nature." "I wonder how she's tolerating your father for all these years." "Yeah, Mom has always been a soft-natured woman. Dad seems to be exploiting her forgiving and caring nature." "I feel sorry for your mother." "I feel sorry for her too. I cut off ties with her when I'm angry with Dad, but she has always loved and supported me." "You shouldn't punish her for your father's mistake. You should call her now. She was really upset when you left the house in anger." "You're right. Let me call her. Thanks for supporting me." Steve called his mom and pacified her while I was still in shock. I was worried that Michael might insult my parents at our wedding. When Steve came back after talking to his mom, I confronted these thoughts to him. He said that he'll figure out something. I wanted to tell him not to call his dad to our wedding, but I couldn't say that up front. We started our wedding preparation. I always wanted to marry on my parents' wedding anniversary and in the same church as them. I told Steve about this wish of mine when we started dating. He was quite amused with this initially, but later he agreed to this, as it was not a big deal. The date was 6 months away. We spent the time preparing for our big day bit by bit. We booked a resort in Sacramento for the wedding dinner. My parents wanted to have a pre-wedding dinner with Steve's parents so that the family can get to know each other. Steve was hesitant about this, and so was I. We both knew that Michael would screw up this get-together. I told my parents that Steve's dad is a busy man and is mostly traveling for his business purpose. My father sensed that something was wrong when we were reluctant to have a family get-together, but he did not say anything. Steve informed his mom about the wedding date and location. She was happy and excited about this. She called me a couple of times asking about the wedding preparations and everything. She was a sweet lady. As the wedding date came near, I was getting worried about facing Michael again on my big day. Many a time I thought of asking Steve not to invite Michael, but my parents would become suspicious of his absence. Besides, if we don't invite Michael, then probably he would not allow Catherine to attend the wedding. She would again have to suffer because of him. I confronted Steve about my anxiety and told him, "Steve, I'm worried that your father might ruin our big day with his arrogance." "Well, I'm worried about this too." "What if he insults my family in front of the guests?" Steve smiled and said, "If he does, I'm sure your father would handle him and teach him the lesson. After all, he is a judge and he knows how to handle difficult people." "Should we tell my parents about this?" "No, they might stress unnecessarily like you, so let it be. If anything happens, I'll ensure that my dad doesn't cross his line." I was still not convinced. Steve looked at me and said, "Honey, no matter what happens, I'll always be on your side, so cheer up." His answer was assuring. I knew my father can handle this situation. After all, it was Michael's arrogant assumption that we have trapped Steve for his inheritance. It was not true. A day before our wedding, we drove to Sacramento. We had booked a hotel for our friends and relatives to stay. Steve's mom informed me that they would directly come to the church for the main wedding. I was nervous. I walked down the aisle with my dad, and that was the happiest moment of my life while we were exchanging vows. I saw Mark and Catherine entering the church. My parents escorted them to the front row to take a seat. Catherine waved at us. She looked happy and excited, whereas Michael sat with a grim face. By then, I stopped caring about him. I was happy to have my parents by my side as I get married to Steve. All went well, and we went to the hotel to get some rest before the wedding dinner. I asked my mom if they got the chance to meet Steve's parents. She informed me that they did not get a chance to speak to Steve's parents apart from the formal greetings. Steve's parents arrived late to the wedding, and my parents were busy with the arrangements, so they didn't get enough time to have any conversation. But my mom mentioned that Michael seemed upset. I asked nervously, "Did he say anything?" "No, he didn't say anything. Actually, he did not say anything at all. It was Catherine who was responding to our greetings. I'm not sure what was wrong with him." "Oh, okay." My mother got suspicious. "Is everything fine between Steve and his parents?" Yeah, everything's fine. He might be tired from the long journey." "Hopefully he catches some rest before the wedding dinner." "Yeah." I thought Steve's parents would not attend the wedding dinner, but to my surprise, they came. Catherine was happy and greeted all of us with a cheerful smile, while Michael was standing stiff with folded arms. He did not bother to congratulate us. Instead, he told Steve, "You've become a puppet. Instead of organizing the wedding at our place, you came to her place for the wedding." "Dad, not today. It's my wedding dinner. Please don't ruin it." "Huh. This girl and her family have already ruined your life, Steve. They made you spend so much on this lavish wedding dinner. If this continues, you'll be on the streets one day." Catherine looked embarrassed as she intervened. "Michael, why are you doing this to our son? It is embarrassing. The guests have started coming in." "Huh, I don't care. They're not my guests." Catherine pulled him aside. My parents were taking care of the arrangements. After a while, they came and greeted Steve's parents. "Hello, Mr. and Mrs. Lewis. We didn't get a chance to greet each other at the church. Hope you're having a good time." "Hello, Mr. and Mrs. Johnson. Thanks for the warm welcome. Yes, we are enjoying the evening." Michael faked his smile and said, "Hello, yes. We didn't get the chance for a formal introduction. My name is Michael Lewis, and I run a real estate business with an annual turnover of over $10 million. "That's impressive. Glad to know." Michael interrupted again. Yeah. I know you must have been impressed. Amanda told me that you're retired now. It must be difficult for you." "What? Difficult? Why? I get a handsome pension from the government for my service. I'm a retired judge, and not a retired janitor." My dad responded humorously. "What? You're a retired judge?" "Yes. Why, is that a surprise? Did you assume that I was a janitor?" Saying this, my father burst out in laughter. My father realized that Michael was trying to show off his wealth. Hence, he gave a befitting reply to him in a humorous way. Michael turned pale and could not find words. He responded in a low voice. "What? No, I did not assume anything as such. Actually, I didn't know that you were into government services." "All right. Now that you know, do you have anything to say?" "No, I'm good. Thanks." Steve was right that my father can well handle Michael. Michael made me feel inferior, thinking I was poor. Now he was shocked to know that my father was a judge at Sacramento Court. "Well, excuse us. We have to attend to other guests. Please enjoy the dinner." "Sure, please go ahead. We'll take care of ourselves." My parents went to greet their friends. Michael pulled Steve aside and said, "Why didn't you tell me that her dad is a retired judge?" Amanda wanted to say, but you didn't let her complete the sentence. Now, please excuse us. We want to enjoy our wedding dinner. Michael's face turned red in anger. He came to the party thinking that he was the wealthiest man at the party, and my parents were poor. Now it hurts his ego to see renowned government officials and bureaucrats joining the party with my parents. He had no one left to unleash his frustration other than Catherine. He looked frustrated for the rest of the evening, but faked his smile when my parents introduced him to high-profile guests. He then left the party early, forcing Catherine to join him. She wanted to spend time with us, but Michael didn't let her stay. I felt sorry for her. After a few months, I got to know that Catherine has decided to divorce Michael as she could no longer take his dominance. Steve told me that Michael did not start this business of his own. It was of his paternal grandfather, that is, Catherine's father. As Catherine was a single daughter, her father handed over the business to Michael before moving to the countryside to spend his retired life. Although Michael was running the business at the forefront, the actual owner of the business was Catherine. She took away his father's ancestral business from Michael and handed it over to her first cousin. The bungalow at which Steve's parents lived was also Catherine's ancestral home. After their divorce, Michael was chased out of that house, and now he has no place to live. I got to know from Catherine that Michael's parents and his siblings have also cut off all ties with him long back, as Michael insulted his parents for their poverty. Michael had no one to go to, and now he's doing odd jobs to make a living. I don't feel sorry for him because he has ruined all his relationships because of his shallow nature. He was arrogant about his wealth, which was not even his. After knowing all this, I'm convinced that Michael married Catherine only for her wealth. That is why he considers everyone to be greedy like him. Steve and I often visit Catherine in her bungalow. She has started organic farming in the backyard where she grows organic fruits and vegetables. She brings fresh fruits for us from her farm whenever she visits us. I feel happy to see her independent and living happily on her terms and not dictated by her cruel husband. Steve and I are also living a happy and prosperous life. Hey, Eric. Mommy, you're back. Yay! Where's Daddy? Eric got uncomfortable with this question. He looked down and said, I don't know. What's going on, love? You're keeping secrets with Mommy? Eric did not say anything, but he kept looking down at the floor anxiously. I sensed that something was wrong. I called up my husband. David, where are you? I came for a vacation with our son. I hung up the call. We immediately packed the bags and left the house. Hello, my name is Caroline and I'm 40 years old. I'm married to David, who's 42 years old. We've been married for the last 10 years. I and David used to work at the same office. That's how we know each other. We fell in love with each other and got married. We were a happy couple. After 2 years of our marriage, our son Eric was born and our family seemed complete. Eric is now 8 years old. Soon after our marriage, David got a better opportunity from a different company and he switched to a different company. I continued to work in the same company and now I'm in a senior position and I have to travel for a few days a month for business trips. When my son Eric was 3 years old, I was offered a promotion at work with the clause that I would have to travel for business purposes for a few days a month. I was reluctant to accept as Eric was too small to be left alone, but David supported me. Don't worry, honey. I'll take care of Eric. Are you sure? Eric is too small. Absolutely. He's my son, too. Besides, it's just a matter of a few days. Okay, then. I'll accept the promotion. David was always supportive of my work. He used to take care of Eric when I went on these trips. I was so grateful to David for being so caring and supportive. Our life was pretty smooth until one day, my father-in-law called. Hey, David, I was thinking of stepping down from the business. I could no longer take on the stress of business. All okay, Dad? Yeah, everything's fine, just that I'm getting older, It's time for you to take over the business. David replied politely, Dad, You know I have worked hard to make my identity. Now, you just want me to leave everything and join your business? David, you knew this was coming. I've let you do everything you wanted until now, but this is one thing which you should do for the family. Dad, you can't force me. I'm not forcing you. Think about it. How long would you work at the job? The business will give you the flexibility to enjoy the later part of your life. But Dad, you are my only heir. If you refuse to run the company, then I'll have to sell it off as I can't manage it anymore. I didn't mean that. Okay, then wind up your work in a month and join the business. But Dad, you've run the business so efficiently for so many years, I'm afraid I'll not be able to manage so well. You would learn as you run it. I too didn't know anything about business until I started doing it on my own. Okay, Dad, I'll give the notice to my company and wrap up my work there. Although David was happy at his job, he knew that he would have to take over the family business at some point. So he was prepared for this, just that he did not realize that this would happen so soon. Soon after David joined his family business, I noticed a gradual change in his attitude. He would come home late, spend the evenings all by himself on his phone, and was mostly away on the weekends. This continued for a few months. After a while, I could not take it any longer and decided to confront him. David, is everything fine with you? Yes. What happened? I've been noticing a change in your attitude for the last few months. Change? What are you even talking about? I wanted to have this conversation with him so that we could fix it, but he simply ignored that anything was wrong. I got furious at his ignorance. Don't act as if you don't know what I'm talking about. You come home late almost every day. Some days when you're early, instead of spending time with me or Eric, you are busy on your phone. David replied in a stern voice. This is happening because I'm busy. I no longer work for a company where I can wrap up my work at 7 p.m. It is my business now. I have to give time to it. Even after coming home, I have to coordinate with other departments over the phone. What about the weekends? Yes, sometimes we have work on weekends too. I didn't know what to say, hence I went out of the room to calm down. Although David's reasons were legitimate, I still wasn't convinced. I could feel the coldness growing between us, which I just could not explain to David. I decided to give him the benefit of doubt and give him some time to settle into the business. Besides, David was a caring father to Eric and would take care of him while I was away. He used to take his time off and take Eric for small vacations when I was on the business trips. 2 years passed. David got busier with his business, and now he sometimes does not come home at all. Although we lived under the same roof, we barely spoke to each other. I kept wondering to myself if my work was the reason behind our growing distance. Sometimes I felt too lonely. I had no one to discuss my problems with. My parents were in their late 70s, so I didn't want to stress them out with my problems. I lost touch with most of my friends as I got busy with my family and work. David's presence in my life was almost negligible. My only hope was my son, Eric. Although he was too young to understand my problem, yet spending time with him makes me happy and relieved. It kept me going. But recently, I observed that Eric was distracted. His grades were falling in the monthly tests, and he was spending way too much time on video games. David has been pampering Eric a lot with all kinds of video games, automatic car toys and whatnot. The next time when David brought expensive video games for him, I resisted. David, Eric already has a lot of video games and toys. This new one is unnecessary. What do you mean? Now I can't give gifts for my son? What do you want? Eric's grades have been falling and he is too distracted these days. He is always on video games, which is not good for his mental growth. He is my son. He would find a way for himself. You don't need to worry about him. Well, he is my son too. I need to ensure that he's raised to be an educated and responsible person. Are you trying to taunt me that I'm an irresponsible person? I have been taking care of Eric since he was 3 years old, when you left him at home. for your business trips." I was shocked at his words. It was he who volunteered to take care of Eric. Besides, he is the father of Eric, so he has the responsibility too. "Wasn't it you who asked me to take the promotion and you volunteered to take care of Eric?" "Yes, it was me. You should be grateful to me for supporting you, but all you do is just complain. I have always been grateful to you for supporting me. That's the reason I'm still with you in this house, despite your cold behavior towards me." Saying this, I broke down. "Oh, please, don't try to play the victim in front of me." I lost my patience and shouted at him. "You know what? I'm done with you. I no longer have any affection or gratitude for you. Whatever you have done for taking care of Eric, it was your duty as a parent. I don't owe you anything for this." David, too, yelled back at me. "You're such an ungrateful woman. Women like you can never be happy, and neither keep their husbands happy." David had never raised his voice at me like this. Even if we were not talking properly, he was never mean to me. He was a changed man now. These words pierced my heart like a knife, and I was howling in pain. I locked myself up in the bathroom and cried my heart out. Eric overheard the fight between David and me. He saw me locking myself in the bathroom, and when I didn't come out after a long time, he started knocking on the door. "Mommy, come out!" I heard him crying outside the bathroom. I washed my face, came out, and hugged him. "Mommy, I was afraid when you locked yourself for so long." "My bad, honey. I was taking a bath." "But your hair is still dry." I cracked up and pulled his cheeks. "Aren't you too smart for your age? Do you want to have some spaghetti for dinner?" Eric got excited on hearing this. "Yeah, spaghetti." Seeing his smile, I forgot all my pain. All this while, David was lying down on the couch, busy on his phone. I made dinner, fed Eric, and put him to sleep. I had a flight for my business trip the next morning, so I packed my bags and slipped a note of my travel details to David on his study table. Ever since our relationship got cold, I slip a note of my travel details on David's study table so that he makes himself available for Eric or drops him at my in-laws' house. The next morning, I went for my scheduled trip. However, the recent confrontations with David just kept me haunted. I was not able to concentrate on the work. It was a 3-day trip, but on the second day, I started feeling feverish and weak. So I decided to shorten the trip. I called up my manager and told him that I felt sick. He coordinated with the travel department and scheduled my return flight immediately on the same day. I returned home thinking of having a good time with my son. I saw that the main door of the house was locked and the lights were also off. I unlocked the door with the duplicate key and went inside. The living room was dark. I switched on the lights and went upstairs to Eric's room. I saw Eric playing with his video games, lying on his bed. "Hey Eric, my love, what are you doing here? And why all the lights in the house are switched off?" Seeing me, he got excited and ran toward me. "Mommy, you're back! Yay! Where's Daddy?" Eric got uncomfortable with this question. He looked down and said, I don't know." "When did he leave the house?" "I don't know, Mommy. Dad asked me not to tell you anything." "What do you mean, honey?" "What's going on, Eric? You're hiding secrets from Mommy." Eric did not say anything, but he kept looking down at the floor anxiously. I sensed that something was wrong. I called up my husband. "David, where are you?" "I came for a vacation with our son." I was shocked. David was lying. That was the last nail in the coffin. The phone was on speaker. Eric, too, heard everything. I hung up the call. I stared at him and he started sobbing. After this, Eric told me everything. It was so horrible to hear. "Mommy, whenever you used to go for a trip, Daddy left me alone in the house." "What?" He was still sobbing. I sat him down on my lap and hugged him. "Sweetheart, since when Daddy's leaving you alone?" "When I was small, Daddy took care of me. never left me alone, but now he locks me inside the house. He keeps the food in the fridge for me to eat and gave me video games to play. When does your father come? Daddy comes late in the night and again goes out in the morning. I could not believe what my little son was going through while I was away. I blame myself too for leaving him at David's disposal. Honey, why didn't you tell me? First, Dad used to leave me for a few hours, but he brought a lot of chocolates and toys for me. But now he is away for the whole day. Dad asked me to promise that I won't tell you anything. I could not see him crying like this. Okay, calm down now. Mommy's here. I'm sorry, Mommy. Dad got me the latest video games. I kept my promise and didn't tell you anything. I'm sorry, baby, that you had to go through so much. I could not believe my ears. What kind of father would do that? David was rewarding Eric for hiding this secret. I felt disgusted. I could no longer stay in that house or let my child see that horrible man. We immediately packed the bags and left the house. I hired an investigating agency to investigate David. After dropping Eric to my aunt's place, I went to David's parents and narrated the entire incident. My mother-in-law could not believe that David could do such things. Caroline, don't get me wrong. Perhaps there can be some misunderstanding. It is not wise to take such a big decision on Eric's words. He is a small kid. What do you mean? I understand what you're going through, but you can once talk to David if there's another part of the story. Although her intention was not bad, she was just advising me to have a confrontation with David before taking any decision. But at that moment, I was too furious to understand her intention. Do you think that Eric is making up all these things? If David was not wrong, why did he lie to me that he was on a vacation with Eric? Well, he might have been busy with work. I lost my patience and told them everything. This is not the only incident. Your son has been giving me the cold shoulder since he joined the business. He comes late at home, barely spends time with Eric, and spends his weekends away from home. Are you trying to say that all these are happening because David joined his family's business? My father-in-law interrupted. Brianna, stop. Caroline is right. I never thought David would turn out to be like this. After he joined the business, a few of my senior employees gave me a hint of David's growing closeness with his assistant. What? Why didn't you tell me about this? I brushed it away as gossip. People tend to enjoy these types of gossip at work. I thought David was too mature to have an affair. He loved you and Eric so much. I should have taken it seriously. I regret it now. Please forgive me, Caroline. I sat there numb. I didn't say anything. Brianna was shocked too. They both were devastated. David had a reputation as an ideal son, ideal husband, and ideal father. He has disappointed everyone. I was not angry with my father-in-law because I too never doubted David of having an affair, despite things getting colder between us. I thought that we have fallen out of love because of our working schedules. I was so naive to think that when Eric grows up, me and David would be relieved from our parental duties and work commitments. Then we'll spend our retirement days again happily together. After I left my in-laws' house, I started getting calls from David. Probably my in-laws called and confronted him. I ignored his calls and blocked him. I moved in with my aunt for a few days and started looking for a house. After a few days, the investigating agency sent the reports, and it was true. David was having an affair with his assistant, Lily. He used to skip his office and spend all day at her place when I was away for a trip. I hired a lawyer and sent the divorce papers along with the copy of photo evidence I got from the agency. Lily was a single mother of a 5-year-old girl. She was divorced by her ex-husband on the charges of an extramarital affair when she was pregnant. While applying for the job, Lily played a victim card and told that she divorced her husband because he was cheating on her while she was pregnant. Seeing her helplessness as a single mother, my father-in-law gave her a job despite her low qualifications. She lied to everyone at the office to get sympathy. Probably she said the same story to David, but her true color was revealed by the investigation agency. The agency fetched the details of her ex-husband too. Lily was divorced by her ex-husband without any alimony or child support because her husband alleged that the baby was not his. The DNA report also proved the same. I sent all these details to David through my lawyer. My lawyer told me that David was devastated to see those details, and he broke up with her. He accused Lily of breaking into our house. David was not ready to divorce me. He loved Eric and couldn't lose him. He told the lawyer that he got influenced by Lily and pleaded for a second chance. He also admitted that it was Lily's idea to lock Eric at home because her daughter stays alone at home when Lily goes to work. I might have given him another chance if it was just me who was hurt, but now it is the question of my child's safety and upbringing. I can't raise Eric with a father who bribes his son for lying. After suffering for so long, I was adamant to get a divorce. It wasn't a matter of a few days or months. David cheated on me for so many years, yet I never doubted his loyalty. I could never forgive him for breaking my trust. I did not agree to any settlement but divorce. My father-in-law apologized for David's mistakes and stood by my side all this while. Everyone at the office knew and gossiped about David's affair and the divorce. My father-in-law could not take this shame and threw out David and Lily from the company. He ran the company again for a few years before selling it off to another businessman for a hefty amount. He has cut off David's name from his will and instead gave his inheritance to Eric. David was disowned by his parents as he had broken their trust too. David shifted to the other side of the city as everyone in the neighborhood looked down upon him for cheating on me with his assistant. Meanwhile, I took a transfer to a different department where I didn't have to travel. Now I can manage my house and work efficiently. I've hired a full-time nanny to take care of Eric. I'm planning to quit my job in a few years as I have saved enough for my retirement. I want to enjoy my life to the fullest with my son. I wish Eric grows up to be an educated and responsible person. I, Verity, 32, female, was living with my husband of 5 years before things took a bad turn. Things were great for us in the beginning, but everything changed once my husband, Bernard, got a promotion. I noticed that he was being very cocky and arrogant, and I even began to notice him distancing himself from me. I talked to my mother-in-law, who I trust very much, about the situation. I really don't know what's wrong with him. Have you tried talking to him about it? Yes, I've done that many times, but he always brushes it off and acts like everything's fine. And when I suggest stricter means, like going to a couples counselor, he gets really angry. Oh goodness, that doesn't sound at all like my precious Bernard. Yeah, maybe because you coddle him too much and those rose-colored glasses you got on prevent you from seeing the truth. Anyways, things were going awry for some time after he got his big promotion. A couple of months after enduring his insufferable behavior, I found some alarming news on Bernard's phone. I was cleaning the bedroom and I noted that he had left his phone dangerously close to the edge of the bedside table. I moved it, but at that moment I saw him getting a text from someone named Pizza Hut. How peculiar, I thought to myself. My curiosity got the better of me and I opened the message to see a slew of horrid things going on. My husband was cheating on me. I saw the myriad of texts and inappropriate pictures. They were flooding my eyes and it was all so overwhelming. At that moment, I heard some heavy footsteps coming towards the door. I quickly locked the phone and put it back where I found it. Bernard came in. Verity, where the hell are my socks? They're here, darling. I was just tidying up the room a bit. Why do you look like you've just seen a monster? Because at that moment I had just seen a monster. Standing in front of me was no longer my sweet Bernard, rather an unrecognizable beast who managed to ruin my whole life and shatter my whole heart in mere seconds. But of course, I was too weak at the time to talk about what I just saw. I just murmured something about how I was experiencing period cramps and he left. That night, I sobbed into my pillow with my cheating husband sleeping peacefully right next to me. Even though I was extremely saddened, I was also extremely angry as well. How could this man cheat on me after everything? I held on to this anger though and waited to expose my low-life husband to none other than his mother. Early in the morning before Bernard woke up, I opened his phone and gathered all the evidence I needed. Turns out that his mistress's name is Rita. I sent all of the information to my phone, put his phone back where I found it, and waited patiently for Deborah to arrive. Deborah arrived shortly after Bernard left for work. When I showed her all the horrible things I found, she too shared the same look of horror and disgust that I held when collecting all of this data. After moments of complete shock, she spoke up. "We need to do something about this. He's absolutely gone crazy." I'm so hurt, Deborah. "I know, my baby, but we'll get through this. I'll call him right now." Deborah proceeded to call Bernard. She put him on loudspeaker. "Bernard, I swear to God, all of this better be some stupid and sick prank, because if any of this turns out to be true, I don't know how I will look you in the face again." "Mom, slow down. What are you talking about?" "Who the hell is Rita?" There was a silence, and although nothing was said, everything was indeed confirmed. He was cheating on me. And by the looks of it, it had been that way for quite a while now. "You better get back home right this instant. We need to have this discussion face to face." Deborah hung up the phone, and for the next 30 minutes, while waiting for Bernard to return, I was completely inconsolable. Bernard finally arrived home, but he appeared to have a special surprise with him. He brought Rita. "What is the meaning of this? Is this the wench?" "Don't call her that, Mom. I love her." "What did you just say?" "Yes, Verity, I'm sorry you had to find out this way, but I guess now is about as good a time as ever. I am in love with Rita. She makes me happy. Lately, I've realized I am at a higher status than most of the things of my past life. I have to elevate myself, and to put things lightly, you're like the older version of a gaming console. Rita is like the PS5. "Bernard, what are you saying right now? Do you know what you've put Verity through? And you, how dare you get with a married man? Have you no shame?" "Well, Mom, I believe that we're soulmates. He's in love with me and I'm in love with him. We're going to start a family together." "Oh, so you think that you're going to change this man?" "Newsflash, honey, a cheater will always be a cheater. And based on what he's just said, he will always be searching for the bigger and better and newer thing. You're not special, sweetie. Take my advice and leave now before things get worse. I can see that you're young. You still have your life ahead of you. You can't be tied to a sick man like this." "Enough! I know you're hurt, Verity, but it's not my fault you let yourself go. You have to understand, as a man, I have needs, and Rita gives them all to me. I guess this all goes without saying, but I want a divorce." As if my heart couldn't shatter anymore, it miraculously did. I was too stunned to say anything. Again, I began to zone out of this dreadful situation, but in the peripherals of my mind, I could hear barely audible shouting from Deborah and Bernard going back and forth. After some shouting, I received a text from my family lawyer. A great uncle of mine had recently passed away, and part of his will indicated that once the inheritance money had been properly divided amongst the appropriate individuals, only then will the actual amount be disclosed to the recipient. I found this to be particularly annoying, but that was just my great uncle Henry. He had a knack for being dramatic. The text read, "Dearest Verity, as always, I hope you're well. As you know, your great uncle Henry has left some inheritance money for you, but unfortunately, it's going to take a bit longer than expected to process the proper funds. Some of your family members are arguing about who gets to keep what. Please call for further clarifications if need be. Take care." Knowing my crazy and toxic family, I highly doubt that there'd be any money left over for me. I was always last place, and the same rang true for my failed marriage. I zoned back in to hear more commotion. Verity, are you even listening? What is there to listen to? Bernard has shown us who he is, right? He doesn't want to be with me anymore, right? That's that. I can't fight for someone who won't even fight for me, for us. But I will say this, Bernard. By the time your karma is finished with you, you will wish you'd never been born. I'm done here. And with that, I gathered up whatever strength I had left, went to my room to pack up some of my things, and walked out the front door. As I was leaving, Deborah was calling after me, assuring me that everything will be fixed. Bless her heart. She still believed that part of her sweet baby boy was still alive, but alas, all that I saw was a hollow shell of a man. For the next couple of weeks, I rented cheap motel rooms, and all the while, Bernard began processing the divorce papers. Bernard had friends who could help speed up the process. He acknowledged that this was hard for me, and he wanted to speed up this process as fast as possible so that I didn't have to suffer any longer. Sounds to me like a guilty conscience. At this point, I was so drained. I had cried all of my tears out. Not long afterward, approximately 6 months after the debacle went down, Bernard and I had officially been declared as divorced couple. Throughout the whole debacle of who would get what and what would be split, I decided to be cordial about everything. Part of the reason why the process was fast was that, surprisingly enough, we were very agreeable about most things. Bernard, being the selfish guy he was, wanted to keep most of his money, knowing that I didn't have a dime to my name, considering I was a housewife. Even though this was the case, I desired none of that money, because it was the same money that caused him to be so selfish and evil. Well, I guess that settles it then. It was nice knowing you, Verity. I hope you take care of yourself. I hope you rot in hell where you belong. I have no desire to keep in contact with you, so please refrain from doing so. Have the day you think you deserve. I stomped off, obviously jaded and hurting still, but I was picking myself back up again. While I was still legally married to Bernard, I used the money in our shared account to kickstart a small business I had in mind, a little cafe that I began to rent. It was a way for me to make money since I knew that I would be getting little if nothing from this divorce settlement. As I was walking to my apartment complex that I began renting shortly after kickstarting the business, I received an email from George. I was very confused by this, as I wasn't expecting what I read from the email. Dearest Verity, my apologies once again for the awful marital situation you're going through, but I have some good news to share with you. Please contact me at your earliest convenience. 3 hours later, George and I were meeting at my quaint little cafe to discuss whatever news was so important that he couldn't tell me on the phone. Hello, George. I hope you're well. Hey, Verity. I can tell that you're hurting, so I'm not going to take up much of your time. Let me cue to the chase. You've got the inheritance. What? What did you say? You heard me right. You've got the inheritance. I'm so sorry that everything had taken such a long time to finalize. You see, the truth is, your great-uncle Henry appeared to have left most of the money to you. This is a letter of his that you need to read now that all of the conditions have been met. The letter read as follows. My dear Verity, I know life has been unkind to you. You have always been put in last place by both friends and family, but I have decided that enough is enough. No more will you be subject to pain and humiliation. Please accept this inheritance money and use it to ameliorate your life in the best way that you can. Knowing your toxic family members, they most likely won't be too happy with the distribution of funds, but I don't care. All I care about is your health and well-being, which is why, if you are reading this now, you now know that all of the money you are about to receive is wholly yours. You shan't go through any troubles or negotiations with people. I wanted to exempt you from this messy process, hence why you are receiving this money now. I know you are going to do wonderful things. All my love, your great-uncle Henry. By the time I finished reading the letter, I was sobbing. Some customers got up and left due to the embarrassing scene, but I didn't care. I was overwhelmed with joy. It was so refreshing to hear some good news after months and months of crying the night away, wondering how and why all of this happened to me. How much is it? It's $170,000. I gasped. That was a lot of money. In fact, that was more than enough money to help me continue to grow and expand my business. I thanked George profusely for his loyalty and kindness, and he went on his way. That night, I called Deborah to tell her everything. You said the amount is how much? Yep, you heard me right, Deborah. We were still keeping in touch despite everything. As I mentioned, I trusted her. At least for a while, because what she did next was completely deplorable. I woke up the next morning to a slew of angry texts from none other than Bernard. Literally less than 24 hours after telling him not to contact me again, here he was contacting me. Despite my better will, we decided to meet up to discuss whatever it was that was pressing him. I guess part of me still had hopes that things would change. We met at my cafe. So, this is the infamous cafe. It's cute, I guess. What do you want, Bernard? Haven't you taken enough from me? Let's cut to the chase. Half of that money is mine. What? My mom told me everything. She told me about the inheritance money that finally came. Talk about good timing, am I right? But anyways, we need that money. You must have lost your mind if you think that I'm going to give you anything. Besides, don't you make enough money as is? What exactly is your obsession with me? Why didn't you care? I was breaking your heart and you didn't even bat an eye. What are you talking about? You knew I was a wreck. You were literally behind the wheel for all of the turmoil you caused me. You watched me suffer. What else do you want from me? When will you be satisfied? When you see me in my coffin? Enough. I don't have time for this. Just give me my money and I'll be on my way. I need the money for my wedding to Rita. What exactly makes you think that you're entitled to this money? Are you sick in the head? The inheritance situation was happening whilst we were still married, so technically that money belongs to me. I paused. I felt embarrassed. I didn't know the technicalities like that. Was something like that possible? So, give me my money. If I'm ever going to give you any money, we'll need a lawyer present. I've heard what you've said. Go home. I will contact you in the morning. Bernard begrudgingly left, angry because he couldn't control me any longer. If we'd still been married, I would have given him my kidney if he asked me. But now, I can't even look this man in the eye without feeling disgusted. In the morning, I called George, as well as the lawyers who were helping us out with the divorce. I explained my situation, and everyone agreed in unison that what Bernard was doing wasn't logical or right, because the inheritance money was finalized after signing the divorce papers, and any money that comes my way is mine, which is exactly what I thought. But Bernard tried to gaslight me into believing that I owed him anything. Angrily, I drove to the house that I used to call home for 5 years, and I knocked on the door. Eventually, someone answered. Oh, hell. Move. I'm not here for you. I'm here for your evil fiancé. What is the meaning of this? Don't you dare come into my house and cause a ruckus. Oh, you mean our house? The house that we built together. You have a lot of nerve treating me the way you do, as if I wasn't good to you. I genuinely believed that you should get your head checked because there are some screws loose. Where is your mother? At that moment, like clockwork, Deborah came out of the kitchen. Now, what's all this noise I'm hearing? Deborah, how could you do this to me? What do you mean? You told your trifling son about the inheritance money. What for? Don't speak to me about my son that way. And I told him because, well, I believe that perhaps we could partake in some of that money. I should have known where Bernard got his cheating habit from. I guess the apple didn't fall far from the tree. All of you are sick. You're trying to siphon money from me? I'm struggling to keep afloat and something good has happened to me for once in my life. And you people want to take that away from me. Well, too bad. I went on to explain to the bumbling fools that the money I got was completely mine, and that because the divorce papers were signed, there was no way for any of these people to get their grubby hands on my money. Of course, Bernard didn't like this news at all, and he proceeded to go on a little rampage, yelling and cursing and even breaking things. I did see his true colors because you won't believe what happened next. Bernard got into his car and began to drive off. I thought that we were done arguing and that he went somewhere to cool off, but when I arrived at my cafe, I found my store had been vandalized. The windows were broken and most of the furniture was damaged. I immediately knew who did this and I called the perpetrator. Bernard, really, you vandalized my shop? It had to be done. You aren't giving us the money. Maybe now you cooperate. I know that you don't have security cameras, so good luck trying to press charges. Wow, just wow. I cut the call and proceeded to call my good friend George to assess the situation. George began to laugh. We got him now, Verity. What do you mean? He's ruined everything. He's ruined my life, and even if I fix it, he'll come back again and again. Don't you see, Verity? We can sue him for this. And with that being said, we can also renegotiate the terms of your divorce settlement. What? But I don't have evidence. Yes, you do. There's always evidence. And sure enough, there certainly was. I discovered that the cameras that came with the building were still working. I was under the impression that they weren't functional, and I caught Bernard's vandalism very clearly. I brought this evidence to George to collate and compose a case against Bernard. Thankfully, our case was well received, and because of the nature of our tumultuous relationship as well as the collection of all of the verbal and emotional abuse that had happened to me, I was highly favored, and the judge determined that I will be receiving $20,000 from Bernard in damages. This obviously made Bernard fill up with rage, and he proceeded to appeal this, but time and time again his appeal was rejected. Now that I have all this money, I can properly cater to my cafe and allow it to grow and expand. The last I heard of Bernard, Rita, and Deborah was that they were all constantly quarreling and bickering, and word on the curb is that Bernard has been spotted several times with a young and attractive blonde woman on his arm. Hello, my name's Jenna and I'm 40 years old. I'm certainly not the first woman to experience abuse and mistreatment from their in-laws, and I am certainly not going to be the last. My story is one, however, that not a lot of people can say that they can relate to, as the idea or concept of getting their revenge is something that can never happen. Thank God that I was able to do something about my situation, and I share my story to help those who are in a similar position to take action against the abuse they're experiencing. The story all started when my husband said this. I need to tell you something important. What is it, babe? Is everything okay? No, I'm afraid I have some news I need to tell you. I saw my mom and sister do something very awful. What? What is it? I finally believe you. I don't think these women want what's best for you, and I'm so sorry I never believed you. Micah is referring to all the instances in which Gladys and Hannah, my mother-in-law and sister-in-law respectively, disparaged and humiliated me for no apparent reason. Instances include deliberately ruining my outfits for formal occasions, sabotaging my food and drink so that I embarrass myself in front of everyone, and even slandering my good business. All because they're mad that I took their precious little boy away from them. I had told Micah about this time and time again, but he would not listen to me. But for some reason, at this moment, he managed to believe me. Oh, well, what made you finally believe me? Well, I saw this. Micah proceeded to show me some of the security camera footage of our business. Micah and I run a business that sells crocheted paraphernalia, from baby clothes to purses. We sell anything and everything that can be crocheted. Our business was doing quite well for some time, and since it was mainly my idea business, my mother-in-law and sister-in-law never failed to discourage me from pursuing it properly. Are you sure that you want to be part of this business? It's not good. It's going to tank in no time. Especially with your expertise or the lack thereof. Excuse me? What she's trying to say is that you're not well equipped enough to handle this business. You should just quit while you're ahead and become a simple housewife or working woman. You can't start your own business. You're too dumb for that. Do you see what I mean? These women would always try and refrain me from doing things that made me happy. I think they must have been jealous, because why else would they do something so horrid? My suspicions of them being evil finally came to light when the aforementioned attempts at humiliating me were underway. And even in those moments when I'd cry to my husband, showing him my ruined dress, asking him to taste my sabotage food, and exposing their illegitimate claims about my company, he wouldn't hear it. He had to see it for himself, and then he finally did. The video footage that Micah showed me was truly awful. I didn't know people could stoop this low. In the video, we could see two masked individuals of feminine frames, one seemingly taller and one shorter, trying to vandalize our building. They had spray paint and they were graffitiing our store. Take a closer look. Look at this lady with a necklace. I did as he said and looked closer, and sure enough, that looked to be Gladys's rare and exotic necklace that Micah got her when he was in Fiji. I see what you mean now. Who else could it have been? They look quite similar. I believe you now. I broke down crying. I was angry and hurt because it took him this long to believe in me. But I was also relieved because someone finally saw what I was going through. I didn't want to tell him about this because this was his family. I couldn't exactly slander or sue them for the damages they were doing, but I did want to get my revenge. And I had been pondering on what my revenge would look like for a very long time. Suddenly, Micah was receiving a phone call from Hannah. Speak of the devil, am I right? He answered it, and they talked for a brief time. Once he hung up the phone, he told me, "Okay, so Hannah just told me that Uncle Peter has just gotten back from a long trip, and Mom wanted to have a big family reunion since a lot of people are home for the summer." "Okay, when?" "This weekend." "Are you going to talk to them about what we just saw?" "You know I want to, but I don't know if I can. That's my mother and my sister, you know. But if you want to confront them, I will help you in any way I can." The weekend came, and Micah and I arrived early at Gladys's house to help with preparing for the big feast that was about to ensue. Uncle Peter was everybody's favorite, so for him to be back home after a long time would be something truly special. Once I arrived, I noticed that both Hannah and Gladys's demeanor shifted from their happy and smiley faces that they had on to looks of jealousy and disgust. "Oh, you two came quite early." "Yeah, Mom, we wanted to help out. We know a lot of people are going to be here today." "Oh, aren't you just precious?" "It's our pleasure." Once I chimed in, Hannah and Gladys turned their eyes on me, looking at me as if I stole something of theirs. But they just couldn't prove it just yet. "Oh, Jenna, such a terrible thing for your beautiful business to be vandalized like that. I saw it on the way over here. Just tragic." "Simply awful, yes." Even a 6-year-old could tell that these women were hiding something conniving. Once they said those things, they were unnaturally happy, almost elated whilst expressing their concern. I even noticed them trying to stifle a laugh. But I had to hold my tongue. I didn't want to make a scene just yet. I was determined to enact my revenge at the right moment, so in the meantime, I decided to play dumb. Micah followed suit because he didn't want to get his hands dirty. "Oh yes, it's just simply awful. We both wonder who could have done such an awful thing." "Yeah, it was really hurtful to see that happen to something that we worked so hard to actualize." Yes, but don't worry, the police will get to the bottom of this. Police? What police? Why? For such a simple crime? I'm sure it was just some stupid teenagers having a little bit of fun. There's really no need to involve the police. Oh, Hannah, bless your heart for caring so much about these alleged little rascals, but even so, they should be punished for what they had done. After all, it's not like they didn't know what they were doing. I'm inclined to agree with Hannah. How many stupid things did you do as a teenager? Don't be rash and foolish. Come, let's get everything ready for the party. I could tell that they were sweating. Why try and brush the whole thing off after inquiring so intently about it? Both Micah and I exchanged a knowing look and proceeded to help out with the party. We spent all morning and early afternoon setting everything up, cooking and cleaning. At around 3 p.m., the family members started to arrive for the big reunion. Once we had finished up everything and were lounging around, Micah pulled me to the side and said, "I have something for you. It's a concealed microphone. I want you to wear this." What? Why? What is it? I'm sorry, I'm not strong enough to confront my mother and my sister. I'm sorry I'm not the assertive and dominant man you want me to be, but in a way, I feel like this is better. If you expose them for yourself, then you'll receive all the glory. You've always been stronger than me. Wear this mic and approach them. You never know what you might find, and you can get your justice. I won't stop you. I appreciated Micah's words, and although I wanted him to be a bit more confrontational, I was also grateful for the help he gave me. And with that, I put on the mix, hit record, and walked around to find those two witches. Finally, I found them conversing in the kitchen. They seemed to be in a heated debate of sorts, so before I entered, I waited at the door to hear what they were talking about. "She knows everything, Mom. Did you see the way she looked at us?" "Shut up, Hannah. You're being paranoid. She doesn't know it was us." "I swear to God, Mom, she knows everything." "Okay, calm down. Even if she knows something, what is she going to do? One thing you should know is that Micah loves us, and she loves Micah. If she did find out somehow, she'd tell him, and then Micah would tell her that she's crazy. I mean, that's what's been working for us so far, right?" "What do you mean?" "Remember how we put ink on her dress before her pitch about the crochet business? Or how we put the spoiled milk in her food and drink? She told Micah about it. There was no way that she couldn't have shared her suspicions with him. But because he loves us, he was willing to overlook it. He'll do the same for us now." At that moment, I burst into the room because I was getting irritated with their villainous talks. Although I had been recording the whole ordeal, I was fearful that perhaps because I was far away, the mic hadn't picked up anything. I had to get closer to gather evidence against them and use it for my revenge. "Hello, you two. Uncle Peter will be here any minute. Are there more things that need to be done?" "Geez, Jenna, you startled us." "Yes, Jenna, I have a weak heart. Don't do those foolish things again." "Apparently not weak enough." "What did you just say?" "Oh, I didn't mean anything of it. Just that for such an aged woman, you do seem to be quite active." "Active? How, dear?" "Well, I could have sworn I saw you. Perhaps it was a dream or something, but I swear I saw you engaging in some rigorous activity recently. You were wearing something black, I believe, and you were also wearing a mask, I think." They stopped what they were doing for a brief moment. "Bingo. Yeah, I believe you were doing something quite rigorous. I believe it might have been something quite bad, actually." "Just what are you getting at, actually?" "I think that you know what exactly I'm talking about, sweetheart." Gladys proceeded to close the door so that we could have a quieter discussion. "What are you trying to insinuate?" "Well, I'm not trying to insinuate anything." "Okay, well, we don't know what you're talking about, so hush now." "I don't know. I mean, if I'm being honest, I think I might have also seen another person with their face covered alongside this other figure, and they were doing something quite criminal." What a shame. I hope you find these criminals. Anyway, Mom, I think we should get going. Not so fast, Hannah. I wouldn't want you to miss this. Miss what? At that moment, I showed them the video footage that Micah showed me. Oh, good. You caught the vandals. Okay, well, now that we know who they are, there's no need to investigate further. Just drop the issue. Honestly, Jenna, you're getting insufferable with this. You're not the only building that has ever gotten vandalized. Yeah, honestly, just get over yourself, Jenna. It's not a big deal. Quite the contrary, ladies. I do believe it is a big deal. You see, I learned something interesting when I discovered this video. Look closer. Both the ladies squinted and zoomed into the phone screen to see what I was talking about, and the look of horror and shock that occurred confirmed all of my doubts. They were the ones who indeed vandalized my precious building. I told you, Mom. Hush, this proves nothing. Who else has this necklace, Gladys? I can't take it anymore. Fine, it was us. Hannah, don't you dare say another word. Well, she's caught us, Mom. I don't know what you want from me. Yes, Jenna, we did it. We vandalized your business. But what are you going to do about it? Yeah, Jenna, there's absolutely nothing you can do about this situation. We know that Micah cares more about us than he ever will with you. So even if you do try and do something, he won't do anything to us because he loves us. He indeed loves you guys, and it's also true that he won't do anything. But honey, what makes you think that I won't? Do you think I'm scared of you two? You tried to come for my business. That is my baby. I won't let you get away with it. Gladys and Hannah both reached out as if to snatch the phone from my grasp, but luckily I was quicker than both of them and I managed to get away. Get back here, you stupid little girl. Even if you get this phone, the data has already been backed up, so there's no point in trying to fight me unless you want to accelerate your already weak heart. Don't you dare antagonize my mother. Do you think you're funny? Do you think you're smart? You'll be giving us all the data this instant, or I swear I will. You'll what? Huh? What will you do? I'll hurt you in ways that you never thought were possible. Oh, I'm so scared. Please don't hurt me. Oh my goodness. You smart-mouthed little wench. We were scurrying all around the kitchen until I finally managed to open the door. And it's a good thing I did too, because right on the other side of the door was Micah. Help me. Your mom and sister have gone crazy. I come to tell you that Uncle Peter is here. What's going on? I'll tell you what's going on. Your pathetic wife is trying to accuse us of vandalizing her business, and she's threatening to hurt us. Okay, that is not true. Tell them, Micah. There was silence. Micah looked downtrodden, and he was stuttering and stammering all over the place. I know you're not used to fighting with your mom and your sister, or fighting at all for that matter, but I need you to fight for me, your wife, right now. Please. Still, there was silence, and Micah's face fell. My heart sank. You see, darling, Micah will always be on our side and not yours. He loves us more than he loves you. Now, that's not true. I love you all the same. You're all very close to me, and that's why it's so hard to choose. Choose what? Why not choose the truth? We both know it. You're the one who showed me the footage in the first place. What? Micah? Why would you do that? Because it's my business too. And what you guys did was terrible. Not just this thing, but all the other times you've antagonized my wife as well. You guys need to stop. Please. We'll forgive you. Speak for yourself. I'm still pressing charges. Not on my watch. At that moment, Uncle Peter, our venerated guest of honor, decided to stumble into the area. He seemed happy but also concerned because we were all here whilst everyone else was waiting for the festivities to begin. Oh, Peter, my love, it's so good to see you. You look well. Yes, we'll begin the festivities momentarily. Let me escort you to your special seat. Tell me all about the trip. We aren't finished with you, Jenna. If you try anything, I swear on Daddy's grave that we'll make sure Micah divorces you. Why do you treat Micah like a child? He is a grown man, capable of making his own decisions. He wouldn't divorce me just because you said so, right, babe? You see, he's hesitating, meaning he doesn't care about you the way that you thought he did. Really, Micah? Really? He just dropped his head down for the second time in 5 minutes. I really did date a wuss. I angrily stomped away and went to the grand dining table that was housing about 30 people. I took my seat, seething, but still trying to ensure that I kept my composure. Not long afterward, Micah and Hannah joined and I kept silent, even though Micah was looking at me like he wanted to say something, but he simply couldn't because of how mad I was at him. Soon after, Gladys and Uncle Peter came in and we all celebrated. The festivities began despite the very uncomfortable fight that happened shortly before the event. Whilst we were eating, the rage just bubbled inside of me and I said, "Attention everyone, I have an important announcement to make. There are 2 individuals here who have always hated me, who conspired to make my life a living hell. Some of you might know who I'm talking about, but just in case you don't, let me convince you." I began to play the recording from the argument earlier. I played the whole thing in its fullness, and everyone was gasping and shocked at what they were hearing. Hannah and Gladys appeared to be too frozen in their seats to do anything, but all the while they were berating me, lying and saying I made it all up for attention. The dinner was becoming a mess. I was shouting at Gladys and Hannah. They were shouting back, and the rest of the adults at the table were trying to gather more information. Micah, as usual, stayed silent. That was until he heard sirens and everyone went quiet. The police were coming, and they seemed to be coming to this house. "What have you done, you wench?" "I will kill you." "I didn't do anything." "I did. I'm the one who called them, Mom. Hannah, you 2 need to be punished for what you've done. I called the police on you and they have a warrant for your arrest because I secretly recorded the recording that Jenna played back for all of you. You guys, we've all seen the way that Mom and Hannah treat Jenna, but none of us said anything, especially me, because this is my wife. And from now on, I will be on her side, because she's proven to be the correct one. Mom, Hannah, please don't make this harder than it needs to be." At that moment, the police made their way into the house and proceeded to arrest Gladys, who was cursing and yelling all the while. Hannah, on the other hand, did her best to run away from the police, but to no avail, obviously, and she was caught. Both the women were humiliated as they were being dragged out of the house. They made eye contact with me, calling me a demon, and they made eye contact with Micah, calling him a betrayer. The night was resumed after they left, and although it was a bit awkward, we all began to share how Hannah and Gladys were toxic. Even Uncle Peter chimed in and said he'd rather be in prison than be around those 2. We all laughed and proceeded to have the greatest family reunion ever without those 2 toxic witches who were my in-laws. They spent the night in jail, thinking over what they had done. Throughout the night, various family members were receiving calls from the local jail, and knowing that it was Hannah and Gladys calling, some family members answered and told them that they needed to spend some time in jail to learn a lesson. Others answered but pretended that the network wasn't working, but the majority of the family members simply refused to even accept the calls. It goes without saying that Micah and my relationship improved tremendously after he helped me out by calling the police. As for Gladys and Hannah, they're out of jail but have been forced to pay a fine for the damages, which was another blow to their ego. And now, whenever we see each other, those looks of jealousy and disgust that they used to often wear on their faces have changed to shame and fear, which I prefer. Revenge has never been sweeter.